Now, over to Paul Clark with coverage of the results of the Northern Ireland Assembly election.
Good evening and welcome to Vote 22, UTV's coverage of the results of this historic Assembly election. The votes are in, they continue to be counted, and over the next hour we'll be discussing what all of that means for the shape of our future government here. Our team of reporters are live at the three count centres at the Titanic Exhibition Centre in Belfast, Ulster University at Jordanstown and at the Meadowbank Leisure Centre in Matherfelt. And they will be bringing us all the results as they happen over the next hour. And to help us make sense of it all, I'm joined in the studio by the political commentators, Professor Sir Peter Sherlow from the University of Liverpool and Deirdre Heenan from Ulster University. And our political editor, Tracy McKee, is also here with her expert analysis of it all. The big question, of course, who will come back as leader of the biggest party and take the position of First Minister? Let's take a look at the state of play at this stage of the day, and that's the current state of the parties. The DUP has 5, Sinn Féin 16, Ulster Unionists 3, SDLP 1, Alliance 5, and others. That's the Independent Unionist in North Down, Alex Easton 1. Let's take a look at the first preference count totals. This is important because it lets you see where the first preference votes have gone, and the Alliance share of the first preference votes have gone to Sinn Féin on 29%, followed by the DUP on 21%. A huge rise for the Alliance vote there on 13.5%. And that's a look at the state there. The SDLP has 9%, Alliance received, as I said there, 13.5%, and others have received 15.8%. Well, let's take a look now at the swing from 2017 to now, and the DUP's first performance vote has fallen by 6.7%. Sinn Féin increased its share, and that was by just over 1%. The Ulster Unionists have seen their percentage share drop by 1.7%, and the SDLP's share fell by just under 3%. Alliance Party's first preference vote rose by almost 5%, and others rose by just under 6%. So that's the way it looks at the moment. It's been a very busy day in our count centres across Northern Ireland, with results coming thick and fast throughout the afternoon. Sinn Féin is holding firm, the DUP is under pressure, and could Alliance double their seats? The Ulster Unionists have defended fielding so many candidates, and the SDLP admit the prospect of a nationalist First Minister saw their voters go to Sinn Féin. Jordan Motes has been following the drama as it has unfolded.
As the results rolled in, one thing became clear. Northern Ireland was on course for a momentous day. There's been a shift in the political landscape, with Sinn Féin likely to be the largest party at Stormont.
We're here after an election. The votes are being counted. The people are having their say, and it's absolutely essential that everybody respects that outcome, respects the will of the people. And I don't think there is anybody who would argue that there is anything other than an appetite for delivery at a time, as I say, when people are increasingly under hardship. So really, for me and for us, this is a no-brainer. There isn't an alternative other than power sharing.
From Foyle to Strangford, there are a lot of nervous DUP candidates. Former Minister Peter Weir has already lost his seat in Strangford. The DUP's worst fears are becoming a reality. They'll no longer be entitled to claim the office of First Minister.
Unionism simply can't afford the divisions that exist. There are seats that may be lost in this Assembly election because of unionist divisions, despite the fact that the common ground we share, whether it is in our passionate belief in the Union as the best way forward for everyone in Northern Ireland, or our opposition to the Irish Sea border and the protocol. I have called consistently in this election for greater unionist cooperation, and I think that is what unionist voters right across Northern Ireland want to see.
For decades, they were the smallest of the big five. This time round, the Alliance Party is giving all parties a run for their money. They could double their MLAs. making them the third largest party.
But what we've seen in a number of places is very encouraging. I think, for instance, in North Down, we're very confident that we will make a gain and have 2 seats. South Down and Upper Bann are also looking very encouraging for us. And we're certainly in with a hunt for a second seat in places like Lagan Valley, East Antrim and South Belfast. And we'll see as the day goes on if anything else comes into play for us as well.
That surge from Alliance appears to be impacting the Ulster Unionists. After nearly 25 years, Roy Beggs has lost his seat in East Antrim. Meanwhile, former leader Mike Nesbitt is having a nail-biting wait to see if he makes the cut. Current leader Doug Beattie was outpolled by Alliance in his own constituency and now needs transfers from his running mate to get across the line.
This election has got a long way to go yet, and we'll continue to fight this election until the last vote has been counted, the last transfer has been given, and then we'll see the lay of the land. We all know where this is going in many cases. In many cases, this could well be an Alliance Party election, and that's a fair one. We know that. But the Ulster Unionist Party do not give up. We keep going, we keep fighting, and at the end of the day, we will see what the end result is, and then we will decide where we go from there.
The prospect of a Sinn Féin First Minister has damaged the SDLP. Stalwarts under pressure, Nicola Mallon fighting for her political career. Losses are predicted in a number of areas.
It's been a seismic election on a number of fronts. The Alliance Party have clearly done very well, particularly in the East, and Sinn Féin have done enormously well with the nationalist vote. I think in the last days of this campaign, the issue of around the First Minister really came home to people. People just didn't like being told by Jeffrey Donaldson that a nationalist couldn't hold the First Minister's post. That galvanised people to go out and vote for Sinn Féin, and I think, frankly, we're being squeezed as a result.
The Greens were hopeful of making a gain somewhere in this election. When the dust settles, they could be looking at a political wipeout. We used to talk about the Big Five at Stormont. After all the votes are counted, we'll likely be talking about the Big Three. The next assembly is looking very different to the last one.
But in a few moments we'll be hearing from Sinn Féin's Conor Murphy, but we're going to cross now to our reporters at the Count Centres, and we join Gareth Wilkinson in Marrowfelt, who's been keeping an eye on the constituencies of Upper Bann, Mid Ulster and Newry and Armagh. Gareth.
Well, Paul, the big story emerging here really is in Upper Bann, and it surrounds Doug Beattie, former soldier of course, but he's in a big fight for his political life in Upper Bann this evening. They're actually calling out the next stage of that election count. Just before that happened, Doug was sitting around about 4,000 votes away from the quota. The leader of the Ulster Unionist Party sitting in around 6th place in his own constituency, and crucially he's behind Owen Tennyson of Alliance, the 23-year-old who's making a big breakthrough here in this constituency. So it seems those two will be scrapping it out for the 5th seat. Diane Dodds too, she's not going to be too complacent, of course, another big name for the DUP. What's happening now is that Glenn Barr, that is Doug Beattie's running mate, his votes, he polled around 3,000. We're here, they're going to be distributed. TUV polled around 4,000. So what happens here in this constituency will very much depend on where those unionist transfers go.
Gareth Wilkinson, thank you very much indeed, and you can keep up to date with all of the goings on today by going to our website. Just search UTV News and follow along on Twitter using the hashtag /UTVVote22. Now I'm joined in the studio by our guests to help unpick all of this, Deirdre Heenan, Peter Sherlow and Tracy McGee. Tracy, can I start with you? What is the state of play as you see it at this time, coming up 12 minutes past 9 on Friday night?
Well, Sinn Féin are nailed on to retain their seats. In fact, they are hopeful of making gains. They think they're in the hunt.
Just cut across your side, Tracy, but we're just hearing that Dolores Kelly has lost her seat in Upper Bann.
And that will tell the tale, because where Dolores Kelly's votes go will decide whether or not Sinn Féin has an opportunity to make a gain. Liam Mackle suddenly finds himself in contention. Or will those transfers go to Owen Tennyson and bring him in over the line or closer to the line? So I think now that Dolores is gone, and you know, she is a fighter and she fought to the very end, now that she is gone, I think we'll have a very clear picture at that point where Upper Ban is going to land. But the fact that they're even talking about getting a second candidate in Upper Ban for Sinn Féin tells you all you need to know. They also think that they're in with a shout in East Londonderry. Potential they could make a gain there. So this is not... We kept talking about this election being a defensive election for Sinn Féin. It's turned out not only have they held their seats, they've now gone on the offensive. And again, a very poor performance from the smaller parties. The Alliance Party looks set to do really, really well. I think they'll do very well at this stage.
There was just one message coming from Sinn Féin, Deirdre Heenan, and they didn't deviate from that.
They didn't, and they're on track for an historic breakthrough in terms of Irish nationalism. And it was the softly, softly approach, it was the optimism, and also, of course, the DUP played into their hands. And really, the DUP will be sitting tonight thinking, what are they going to do about this? And if they are going to slow the progress of Sinn Féin, the first thing that they have to do is accept the result of this election, get into the executive, address the cost of living crisis, stop sabre-rattling about the protocol and look for medications from the executive together. Focus on the cost of living crisis, which is what people are concerned about, because what is the alternative? The alternative is direct rule, war with the EU, unstable government, instability all round, and of course that's grist to Sinn Féin's mill. So I think it is really important that they do accept the outcome, because otherwise it's an affront to democracy.
Well, we're just about to hear now what affront to democracy it would be if the DUP do not get involved, because we're talking now to the Sinn Féin MLA for Newry and Armagh, and that's Conor Murphy, and the outgoing Finance Minister as well. Conor Murphy, congratulations on your re-election. Can I ask you what you intend to do with the mandate as a whole for Sinn Féin?
Well, what we intend to do when the final votes are counted and the final transfers and the seats allocated is to get back into the Assembly on Monday. I'm sure Michelle O'Neill will be reaching out to the other party leaders, trying to get people around the table to get an executive formed as quickly as possible, so we can actually address the issues that people did raise with us when we were out on the campaign, and that is how they're going to heat their homes, how they're going to get food on their table, how they're going to get access to adequate health care. And these are the issues that people want us to address. They want parties to work together. That's a big lesson, I think, from this election. Parties need to work together, be positive, because that's the only way we can find solutions for people, is to get around the executive table and get decisions taken and funding allocated.
Does that mean that your call for a border poll can wait?
We want to see constitutional change as soon as it's practically possible, and we've always had that position. It hasn't changed. It was in our manifesto, and that hasn't changed. But we are in a position. This was an election to the Assembly. The issues that people are facing today, tomorrow, and the next day are around cost of living crisis, funding for the health service, and ensuring that we can try and improve within a limited budget our public services as best we can. That's what people want to see happening in the here and now. We want to see a constructive discussion about constitutional change in this country. It's already begun informally. We want to see that formalised, and surely we will press ahead with all of that. But we can assist people in the here and now. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can assist people in the here and now, and we need an executive to do that. And so the posturing in relation to protocol and obstruction and blocking other people going to work needs to stop. The parties all want to get around the table and take decisions.
Conor Murphy, it also sounds to me like you're kicking this idea, this pipe dream of a united Ireland, just a little bit further down the road tonight.
No, we're not kicking anything down the road at all. If the United Ireland was available tomorrow, I would take it gladly, because it would get us out of the mess that we're currently in, being attached to a British government who are taking decisions against our interests. The fact is, it needs to be planned for, it needs to be discussed. We need to understand how it would work, how it would be two systems on this island would merge together.
But all of this will amount to nothing.
Everyone who lives in this island.
All of this though will amount to nothing unless you can get the DUP to sign up to government here.
Well, it's not up for us to get the DUP. The DUP have just gone to an election. They've gone around the door and talked to people about their 5-point plan and what they want to do. They can't now turn around to the people who voted for them and say, actually, that was all nonsense. We don't intend to get into an executive at all. So 4 of the 5 points in the plan don't really matter that much. The DUP have to respect the wishes of the electorate. The electorate wants an executive in place which is taking decisions, which is trying to assist them with the very real pressures that they're facing day and daily. And the DUP need to play their part in that along with the rest of us.
Conor Murphy, thank you very much indeed. Well, our panel have been listening to what Conor Murphy was saying there. Peter Sherlow, is this notion of a united Ireland going further down the road after all?
Well, it's of course the objective of Sinn Féin is to achieve united Ireland, but we're certainly in this election and that sort of silence and that lack of electioneering is very much about presenting themselves to the southern electorate. You saw much more, gathering in St Anne's Square, the modern Sinn Féin, not raising issues like the border poll, etc., not engaging in the sort of legacy politics of legacy that they usually engage in, and very much sort of trying to persuade not only the electorate here, but also in the south that they're a responsible social democratic party. The fact is they're only up here 1%, but it's still a spectacular management. Don't forget in 2019 in Westminster, they lost the seat in Foyle. The party was a mess in Derry. They went up and corrected that. They won in North Belfast because the SDLP didn't stand. Okay, so this has been a real management of a vote that they have. But the one thing that's interesting here, of course, what is impressive about their result tonight is, of course, the DUP have done so badly.
But also they read the room, and I think that's what's really important. They looked around and they read the room. The public are weary. The public have been through COVID. We've been through a toxic Brexit process.
Should we be reading anything into what we didn't hear from Sinn Féin?
No, because the raison d'etre is a united Ireland, but they know from Brexit, they know what happens when you have a vote and people don't know what they're voting for. And they're quite rightly now saying, look, we need to do the groundwork. We need to understand what it might look like. Of course, it's part of our plan, but it wasn't front and centre of their manifesto because they knew it would put people off in a sense. So what they are saying is we're attracting people who are attracted to left-wing politics. They're anti-establishment still, which is quite interesting because they are the establishment but can still also present themselves as anti-establishment. And also demography has changed and they're attractive to the young voter who can't get on the housing ladder.
But as a party which actually looks at data, studies data and plans and manages, they know the vote's not there. There's not 51% of the people in Northern Ireland who want United Ireland.
Yeah, I think also too they fought a very, very slick campaign when you think about it. It was, well, the words that were used to me were, we fought a relentlessly positive campaign. Look at the people that they put out in front. John Finucane, someone who has proved himself to be transfer friendly, someone who does attract voters. The whole leadership team looked slick. And then the change of emphasis towards the end of the campaign. First Minister for all. They took those words from Jeffrey Donaldson and turned it against him, putting Michelle O'Neill forward as the presidential style candidate. It was a very slick campaign.
It's a long way from having your Ardèche in Ballyfermot Leisure Centre. It is that I don't mean that jokingly, I just mean it is such a transition. When I saw the pictures in St Anne's Square and thought of those things that you would have covered years ago, Paul, but it would have been a leisure centre with 100 people sitting in there and hitting 5 and 6% elections.
Hasn't Sinn Féin also hit the mark here, Tracy, by appealing to the younger voter that's coming out now?
Yes, I mean, the recent poll that we saw, that it was Alliance and Sinn Féin that were doing well in that younger demographic. Certainly, they are the people that seem to be energised by Sinn Féin and also energised by the lack of orange and green policy.
And they're voting for the certainty that they're getting from those parties as well, that actually they will be listened to.
Yes, they are, and they are listening to their voices. They believe that their message is resonating with those younger people. But also it's interesting that some of their candidates are not well known. So we're talking about that second candidate in Upper Bann, which he's really been invisible. But what we did see is that across the north, where posters went up with Michelle O'Neill, even in constituencies she wasn't standing in. So, and John Finucane, as you say, was front and centre, and he could attract transfers, could attract the middle class vote. And so, all in all, it has been a very successful campaign for them.
We are going to continue with this conversation up until 10 o'clock tonight. I'd like you to join us again after the break for much more on the winners and losers of this election. We'll see you again shortly.